What's up, guys? Good morning. How's everybody doing? Let me know if you guys can hear me and see my screen. Good morning. Doing good, doing good. Hope you guys are having a good week. We got a big day ahead, FOMC. Got my iced latte going. Good morning, SPX. Good morning, Go Harali. What's up, what's up? Good morning, hope you guys are doing good. Going to get into the analysis for the day here. If you guys aren't already in the Chart Fanatics Discord, I shared my game plan in there already as well. So go check that out. We'll talk through it here this morning. Hoorah. J-Rod. Good morning, Nicole. Welcome in. See a lot of familiar faces in here. A lot of familiar faces in here. Or I guess I should say familiar names. Gamer Rush. Damien, welcome in. Very cool intro. Yeah, the Chart Fanatics crew made that. Very good. All right. So, hope you guys are having a good week. It's been an extremely strong rally on ES and NQ this week. I've been leaning personally more on NQ this week. It's been very nice, relatively stronger. So I've been leaning more plays on long plays on NQ this week, although I primarily trade ES. I'll get into the analysis on both and talk through what I'm watching through here. But first, before we get into that, huge thanks to our sponsors, Prop Firm Trader, Apex Trader Funding, 90% off right now, by the way. So best time to take advantage of that. If you guys do use those and leverage those, TradeZella, 20% off, code CF. So if you guys want the best discounts on these tools, highly recommend these sponsors. That helps us out a ton. Market Journal as well. So if you guys want to dive into this analysis this morning, let's smash the like button. This is an impromptu one for me today. I'm normally on Fridays, but we're jumping in here today to go through the analysis and get us prepared for the upcoming day. Big day with FOMC upcoming, right? It's always a big one to put a star on a calendar. FOMC rate decision, that is. Thanks, Nicole. Appreciate that. Appreciate that. All right, guys. So we'll get into the analysis here. This is Bookmap. This is my favorite order flow analysis tool. This is what I use for most of my reading the tape, reading the live market auction, the order flow confirmations. I have ES, NQ, and gold, which I'm kind of watching a little bit more now. A lot of people are interested in that, so we'll keep an eye on that if anything key comes out. But primary watches are ES and NQ. And let's talk about this. So going into the Chart Fanatics Discord under the Matt Owen channel, under the CF Live team, I shared my game plan already. So I'll briefly talk through it here. Can reference that if you want. Let me take a screenshot here of my charts so I can talk through this. If you want my more detailed kind of things that I talk through, you can check out the game plan there in the Chart Fanatics Discord. I'll kind of keep it a little bit at a high level here. We'll kind of go through just the main things that I'm watching, setups and scenarios for this morning. If you guys have questions throughout the stream, feel free to ask them. I like to keep things educational focused. So if you guys have questions about anything market auction related, order flow, or just trading in general, drop them in the chat, and I'll do my best to get back to everyone throughout the stream. Do I have any updated Trade-Evade order flow settings for NQ? I'm not sure what you mean. I use Trade-Evade footprint chart and volume profile, as well as I also use Sierra chart. But the settings are pretty much all the same as ES. I just look at a larger range on the footprint chart. I look at a 40 tick range, around 10 points. I'll show you what that looks like here. This is why I hate moving my screens around. Everything gets all wonky. So you can see 40 tick range, a little different. All right. So we'll get into the game plan here. Sorry, I'm looking through the questions. What is your system or form of bias? I primarily trade based on supply and demand, market auction theory. So I do analysis with, simple price action structure on candle charts, combined with information from volume profiles to do kind of technical analysis based on supply and demand. And I look at order flow to analyze the real-time market auction. And that's what I use to kind of confirm and execute my trades with high precision. I just like 30-minute and 15-minute charts is a good kind of like multi-day view for the last few trading days. It's a nice view of the intraday price action. It's a nice view of the last few days that's most relevant to my short-term intraday trading. And so I like to have a volume profile on a 15 or 30-minute chart for that purpose, because I'm primarily looking at stuff like within the last couple days, and that's just a nice overall view I've found for the last few days. It's zoomed out enough that I can get a good idea of the overall structure, volume, and it's also, zoomed in enough that I can have a decent degree of precision. Majority of my analysis overall, higher time frame, is on the daily and 4-hour charts. So I like the daily and 4-hour charts, and then I like volume profile charts on like the 15 and 30-minute. I don't have a specific time frame for my execution, no, because I'm not looking at like candle chart patterns for my execution. I'm looking at what you see here on Bookmap. I'm looking at the real-time order flow. I'm looking at the depth of market, and I'm looking at my footprint charts to confirm and enter my trades. That's what my stops are based off of. That's what my targets are based off. That's what my whole trade execution and trade management is based off of, reading the real-time market auction with order flow. So I'm not looking at like a certain time frame on a candle chart. I'm just looking at that overall for market structure, analyzing key areas of supply and demand, support and resistance, and then also looking at volume profiles to identify where people are factored in the market, right? Because there's a person, there's people behind that volume, right? And people's orders move the market. All right, so snip my charts here. Sorry, trying to answer questions as we get along here. We got about 20 minutes till the market open. I don't really trade in the pre-market. I'm just kind of going through analysis and stuff. So just kind of going through analysis and stuff. I don't really use any indicators. This absorption indicator I do have turned on Bookmap here. And this is just large passive orders that get filled. And it is, I'll show you my exact settings here. This is the absorption indicator on Bookmap. And right now I have it set to a 15 times multiplier in the last 30-minute period. So if anything, 15x abnormally large hits, then it will just trigger an alert there. I don't really need that. I don't really use that as like any kind of confirmation for my trades or anything. It's just a nice little cheat sheet tool if I'm looking away and look back and I'm like, oh, some large orders hit here. If you can't already see the large dark spot on the heat map and the large red bubble that filled there, obviously a passive buyer got filled there. VWAP settings are anchored. I change the anchor point from time to time. I'm looking at since September right now. So the main things that I'm watching here. Yeah, so I did a video a while back on here on Chart Fanatics. It was kind of like an intro video to like kind of supply and demand and order flow trading. That's a good one to watch. And I also have it shared on my YouTube channel. So if you check that out, it's a good free, just kind of intro video to understanding order flow trading with supply and demand. So I'm mainly watching like this area at these prior highs. This was prior all-time highs. We went through a phase for a little while where each time, this is ES, by the way, should start with that. ES, S&P futures, 4-hour chart. We went through a little while where we were poking all-time highs like 1, 2, 3, 4 times, and each time we rejected back lower, right? But bulls were also kind of holding these lows. The market panic sold off a couple weeks ago off that surprise tariff news with the whole Greenland stuff. We dropped down to a key level of demand. Lo and behold, tariffs went away and the market went straight back to all-time highs. Is that a good synopsis of what happened, guys? So we've just briefly broken all-time highs again this morning, and we are still kind of consolidating in this prior area of resistance here. So the main thing that I'm watching here is on this pullback, especially above 7,000. But ideally, if bulls continue to stay very strong, kind of around this 70.14 to 70.24 area, I would want to see, buyers support this pullback. So I'm watching for pullbacks here on ES to see if it gets defended, or if we drop a little lower, if bulls defend this last swing low around 7,000 right here, then I'm possibly looking to be a dip buyer targeting the highs, right? I want to be very cautious today, especially this morning, chasing the market at highs. We've already had a pretty extended move this week into new all-time highs. And I also want to be very cautious stepping in front of the bullish momentum that's going on to be a first seller. So need to be very patient and cautious this morning. And many times I just don't take trades, in the morning before an FOMC rate decision, especially if it's choppy and grindy inside day, right? We've basically rallied every day this week, consolidated and rallied again, consolidated and rallied again. And those moves have been extended overnight too. So like every day, regular trading hours and overnight, just continuing higher all the way straight into all-time highs. So a lot of bullish momentum going on. Want to be very cautious stepping in front of that. However, if we do see kind of a major shift in structure here, especially early this morning, and we break under this and pops start to fail under these key levels, then I may look to scalp shorts, just targeting the next kind of structure areas on the 4-hour chart where we had these last consolidations. If I do end up doing that, if we do kind of shift structure to the downside and it looks like a good opportunity just to scalp shorts, I'll probably be very quick with that. Right? I'm not trying to hold through a sharp, aggressive bounce out of one of these demands areas that have formed all week. Hey, what's up, Goo Mate? Welcome in. All right, so that's just kind of a quick rundown on the 4-hour chart of what I'm watching there. Again, that's all kind of in my game plan that I shared in the Chart Fanatics Discord. So if you're not in there, I recommend checking that out. And now popping over to NQ. NQ has been relatively stronger this week, making stronger advances higher and holding higher lows better, especially at key support areas or resistance areas that become support. So it's been working cleaner on NQ. So I've been taking longs on NQ this week. But we had, again, well, this is actually a 1-hour chart. So this is a 1-hour chart here on NQ. We had this area that was, prior resistance around, 21. Specifically, I have this marked around 26,095 to 26,140. So we had this area here. That was a resistance area here. You can see how we rallied up into it and kind of consolidated there under it yesterday. And then as soon as the market closed and reopened, we blasted through there. And so I'm watching that area to see if we get any pullbacks there. If it holds, ideally, at the same time, we would see ES also holding its kind of key demand areas that I mentioned, right? And then I also was watching this area of resistance around 25,994 to 26,030 yesterday. Yesterday, I actually took longs off this once we kind of broke out, pulled back and held it there. I took longs, targeting up above. So if we come back into one of those areas here or here, I may be interested in buying it if I see a strong support from buyers continue. If not, like I said, very similar to ES, if we break, if we break through these and kind of pops fail under them, then I might be interested in taking shorts if I start to see pops fail and aggressive sellers defend once we break structure and break below those. Again, being very cautious shorting highs and very cautious chasing longs. So that is the plan today. Let me show you guys, put the other thing on here, right? So if we do pull back into there or there, I could watch to be a dip buyer there. We're gonna watch the market auction in real time and kind of decide what makes sense based on that. Again, until proven otherwise, bulls are very much in control. So there's not really any reason to go against that until very much proven otherwise. So let's see here. So speaking of NQ, here's a 30-minute chart on NQ with the volume profile. You can see this is where we built all that volume up here after we broke these highs and rallied up. Again, nice little lower volume area here. And that's kind of the last little structure, right? So we're kind of testing this area right here this morning under these lows, where we want to watch out to see if the dip gets bought or if we shift structure back to the downside here this morning. That same level that I talked about on the candle charts was pretty much around here, which also aligns with this lower volume area there. So if you want to be more specific, ideally we rallied up here with very aggressive buying, right? So if bulls are going to maintain control early today, then you would want to see these really aggressive buyers reload and continue to defend and drive price back higher again. If we don't, then what we could see is at least a short-term kind of break under there and retest some lower levels, right? Possibly this area from yesterday where we had this large consolidation, right? We broke out of there overnight. I don't see, if we do shift this structure and break here, I don't see much from stopping us to go back down here. Dropping these screenshots in the channel, Matt Owen on Chart Fanatics Discord. So if you want to see those, I recommend checking those out there. Now, we want to be very cautious this morning because it could just kind of be slow and choppy ahead of FOMC news today, right? So that's a big thing we need to be mindful of here. Gogu Trades asked Matt, will FOMC affect other non-USD pairs? I would expect that it would. I don't really watch anything else though, so I don't have experience enough to say. But the US kind of dominates the global market so much that I would assume that it would have a big global effect on other things outside the US as well. Maybe not, I don't know. So let's look at NQ here. I mean, sorry, ES here. So similar stuff, although ES has just kind of been a little bit slower and just kind of grinding higher, right? We had this area where buyers were kind of aggressive overnight and broke out prior day highs. So this is that area that I talked about here. right? So we had prior day highs here that resisted kind of all day from the morning all the way until the close. We could not get over this area here. We broke out pretty aggressively and left this area. So we're testing that again this morning. Right now, like in the pre-market here leading up to the market open, just a few minutes away, we've tested that 1, 2, 3 times on 30-minute chart here. So very important to watch this area. To the downside below that, the last area, we had a lot of volume built here. If we break, that kind of aligns with this low volume node. If we break under that, the last area was kind of this consolidation here that we then broke out over 7,000, right? Here's a 7,000 area. So that would be, my eyes would be there if we get under here. Not saying I would want to short into that, but I would just kind of sit back and wait and see what happens if we drop down there. So we can see, looking at the order flow here on ES, look at all this aggression from sellers into that area. Again, this is that same area that I mentioned. This morning here in the pre-market, look at all this large aggressive selling, and passive buyers have stepped in here and held this at that previous area where we broke out of prior day highs. You guys see that? So this is in the short term, right? I don't know if this will hold forever, but in the short term, this is an area where we're seeing a lot of absorption of aggressive sellers, right? So around 20, 19 to 17. So this area from 20 to 17 this morning here in the pre-market, we're seeing a lot of large aggressive selling. Like if I zoom out here, look how, since I opened up Bookmap this morning at like 5 something a.m., look at how large and aggressive this selling is into this area. We haven't seen really anything else like that so far this morning. This is what I'm talking about here. And we see this passive buyer on the heat map absorbing all these sellers. Now, will this bounce the market from here? I don't know. We'll see what happens, right? It could be that sellers kind of stay relentless, right? Because aggressive sellers are controlling the market here this morning in the pre-market. So if we see, pops fail with kind of weak buying and we just hang out here with a lot of heavy selling, this is what I talk about. This absorption is like a sponge under a faucet here. Now, if this sponge absorbs everyone that's willing to sell aggressively and then large aggressive buying comes in, we're likely going to trap them all at the lows and rally back up into the highs. However, if this sponge continues to just get saturated, right, and this faucet starts turning into like a fire hydrant and gushing aggressive selling, then we'll likely break through it and go test those lower levels. That's what I'm watching here this morning. Is Tradeovate having issues? Not sure. I have Tradeovate and Sierra chart open, so I could, if Tradeovate has issues, I can use Sierra chart as well. Can you show your volume settings on Tradeovate? Sure. I'll pull it up here. My volume profile settings. Sure, let me see. So Go Harali, if you look up on YouTube, I have a video going over my Trade-Evate volume profile settings and my footprint settings as well. Yeah, Trade-Evate is having issues, appears. It's all right, I can use my Sierra chart, which I use anyway most of the time. Sorry, I'm trying to reset Trade-Evate here, guys. Give me a sec. Yeah, I don't know. Trade-Evate might be having issues today. I'm looking at Sierra chart. Let's see here. Yeah, I'm seeing people saying Trade-Evate's having issues, so I'm just staying on Sierra chart as well. A lot of aggressive buying off the get-go here. Wow. Look at that. Look how much buying just came in relative to the selling that we're seeing getting absorbed in that range. Let's check NQ as well. Yeah, that's not good for Ninja and Trade-Evate. I'm looking at Sierra chart, guys. So we'll see that in Bookmap. So I don't see any issues with Bookmap or Sierra chart, which I have different stuff set up on. Ton of aggressive buying here right off the get-go. Suva, I don't said Bitcoin analysis, please. I don't personally trade Bitcoin, so I can't, really speak on that. Yeah, I can't really speak on that. So I don't trade Bitcoin. Yeah, if Trade-Evate's having issues, if your broker's having issues, that's a good time to definitely pause and not get yourself tilted fighting the market and fighting the brokerage having issues. Especially on a morning like this ahead of FOMC news this afternoon. We're gonna have, a lot of volatility probably later this afternoon, or not. Maybe nothing will happen. I don't know. But usually, FOMC kind of sparks a lot of volatility. I'm looking at Sierra chart right now and Bookmap. And what I'm sharing here is the live order flow on Bookmap. Let me talk about this. So the bubbles that I have set up here is showing me the delta, the difference between aggressive buyers and sellers. So green bubbles are going to essentially show me there's more aggressive buyers than sellers, and red the opposite. And then on the right hand side here, I just simply have a DOM, which is showing me the breakdown of aggressive buyers and sellers. And then over here, I have the session volume profile. So same thing that you see on my other charts, looking at the volume profile. It's just, this is just the daily session that's cleared out at 9:30. I have that as well on my footprint chart. I look at the intraday session volume profile. Again, that's just showing me a visual representation where there's a lot of volume built up, right? Participants are leveraging into positions. And if we move aggressively away from that and leave, we'll likely leave an area of low volume. And that's good information as far as analyzing where, participants are very aggressive and moving price easily. Gold, I haven't traded enough to say. Tendra asked, how many points is your stop usually on NQ? Probably on average, like around 10 points, plus or minus a bit, depending on the volatility, depending on, mainly the volatility and the setup that I traded, right? And the target as well. The stop loss is always at a point that invalidates the trade based on what I was looking at to confirm the trade entry. But I would say as a general rule, like around 10 points maybe on NQ, plus or minus, depending on volatility. And ES is typically around 2 to 5 points. Sometimes it just depends on volatility. Like that can be plus or minus a little bit. But I adjust my position size generally to keep my risk consistent. That's the most important thing, is just having good risk versus reward trade setups based on the target that you have, based on the stop loss that you have, and keeping your risk consistent, which means adjusting your position size so you're not, you can take two different trades that have two different size stop losses as far as point value. That's fine, but adjust your position size so you're not, having wildly different risk amounts, right? That's going to be very hard to have consistent trading results throughout the months if you are not keeping your risk per trade consistent, right? Because you could go on a great winning streak and your wins are small because your position's small, and then you size up into another trade and take one loss and blows all of that. So if you have a positive expectancy based on your win rate, your risk versus reward on your trades, that's great. And then manage that by just keeping your risk consistent. Now over time, as you get more experience, certain setups are better probability, better risk versus reward, and you can do a bit of dynamic sizing, right? And I do that, right? I size in to good trades, higher time frame trades, but I have a kind of threshold for that, right? And I consistently size in to certain types of trades, and I would recommend staying more consistent with your risk per trade. Yeah, my OBS is telling me it's disconnected. Are you guys there? Can you guys hear me? All right, yes. Yeah, OBS just told me the stream was disconnected and then reconnected. So hopefully we're good. Had a nice aggressive little pop here, kind of settled back down. Take a look at NQ here. NQ is dropping quite a bit more relatively. Not seeing much on my end yet. Just kind of chilling and staying patient. The stream did blip for a few seconds. Okay. Ooh, there's some aggressive buying coming in on NQ there. See that? Pretty aggressive buying stepped in there. See what happens there. It's right at the lows though. Yeah, if you're having issues with Tradevate, I would recommend not trading. I am looking at a Sierra chart. I look at the CVD, but it's not a huge impact. Mainly if I see a big divergence, that would get my attention. Meaning like if we, have a big flip at the low or the high in the cumulative volume delta, that would be interesting to me. I like how this buying is coming in pretty aggressively on NQ. I may have missed that there. We dropped right into that area where I was wanting to look for longs. Or one of the areas. Kind of swept under that swing low from 4 a.m. on NQ. And we're seeing a lot of aggressive buying come in since then. We'll see if we get another pullback into here. I like this area where these buyers were pretty aggressive. Oops, I didn't do that. This. I like this area here where these buyers came in pretty aggressively. If I see a little pullback there, that may be interesting to long. At least targeting a bounce back up into VWAP here, but it may already be gone. And it might already be gone. Yeah, there it is, tag. So that would have been a nice setup right there. Kind of swept under the overnight lows. Dip got bought pretty aggressively. Take a look over here at ES. ES is still pretty darn flat, which has been the case a lot of this week, and that's why I've been trading mostly NQ so far this week. Been trading NQ a lot this week. ES has been kind of grindy and flat. We've had better setups and moves on NQ. I mean, look at that reversal there from the sweep of the lows into VWAP. Banger. ES is pretty muted. Basically, stayed all morning in a 5-point range here. Yeah, I definitely zoom out more on NQ with order flow tools than I do on ES, and it's so wild and has so much larger price swings. I do zoom in more for my entries, right? But I'm just spending a lot more time zoomed out and looking for where larger orders hit. On this drop, what was interesting down here on this drop, guys, is one, we broke the overnight swing low from around 4 a.m. We dipped down there, and on this dip, look what happened. See that passive buyer sitting there got filled. We had this super aggressive selling. We kind of double bottomed there with weak, smaller selling on the second bottom, and then look at all this aggressive buying that came in. That I think I was looking more at ES when this happened, and then I marked it. So if we got a pullback into there that got bought, I would have looked to long that on NQ, but I'm not going to chase it up here, right? Because I'd kind of just be targeting VWAP or targeting a new break of the highs. And so once we squeezed up here, risk reward became a lot more like 1-to-1, which I was not interested in. But if we would have got a little dip back here, that would have been an instant buy for me. Just seeing how the selling kind of failed to break under those overnight swing lows. Sentiment and momentum is bullish overall, and this really look at this route, this drop down, this whole drop down, aggressive selling pretty much, a little weak buying there, not much buying, sold off, and then look at that, a large aggressive buying. And then especially the reaction after that, a fast rally out of it. If we would have seen a pullback into there that got supported, that would have been a very interesting dip buy for me. if Tradeabate's having issues and YouTube is having issues, some people are saying the stream's lagging. There may be like an overall larger internet issue going on with some major providers, maybe. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Let me know in the chat if you guys are having issues with the stream. Seems mixed. Some people are saying they're having issues, some people aren't. I don't love trading days like this, where we're having a big upcoming news event and then we're having technical issues both with streams and with trading platforms. Is not ideal to see. MQ is ripping now. ES is following. We've still stayed supported above the 770-20 area that we saw in the pre-market. Somebody's got the bookmap delay issue too. I haven't seen any issue on my bookmap here this morning. My bookmap has stayed solid. Yeah, I kind of missed that bottom reversal here on ES and NQ. Kind of trying to figure out this issue here with the stream delay, but it's all good. Really nice, strong bottom reversal here. See if we get a pullback anywhere around like 26,250 to 26,260, 270-ish area on NQ. ES pull back down here around VWAP to these 20s. The moves are just so small and subtle on ES right now. It's making it kind of tricky. Kind of pulling back to VWAP and around point of control here on NQ. Wow. Pretty strong rejection here on NQ now. That volume kind of declines here under like 26, 230s, 235s. Kind of trading into that lower area now. Yes, dropped back into that box, still supporting above those 20s though. ES still supporting above those 20s. Gold is making an attempt at new all-time highs again. Yeah, I don't look at copper. Copper is lagging. I like how this dip is kind of being supported here above these 2635s on NQ. Really nice bounce off of there. I'm looking at the point of control that's on my intraday volume profile on NQ. Wow, what a rip out of there. Right off where this box was from earlier. No coincidence there. Look at that. I didn't catch it. I was watching for it and I was a little slow to click buy here. I was waiting for it to dip a little more into this box, but look at that. What a bounce off those 30s right there. Instant like 30 points off that on NQ. Yeah, I just didn't catch it. I was a little slow. You know, I don't trade NQ as much. I'm still kind of warming up to NQ. I've taken, I think, 3 trades on NQ this year. And so my brain is adapting to how fast NQ trades compared to ES. And I was a little slow to buy that, even though it got to the location that I was at. I was watching it and I kind of froze a little bit and it just zipped off there and I wasn't going to chase it anymore. I was looking for it. I was looking to be a buyer at or in this yellow box right here based on what I saw here earlier. And we literally like ticked the top of it. You had like a 3-second window to be a buyer there and I missed it and we shot off of it. So I just straight up missed that one. That was like right there at the location. It just happened too quick and I didn't pull the trigger quick enough. Not going to chase it though. Just going to sit back and stay patient and watch what develops here. Yeah, I was looking for the C. I wasn't really looking for the entry on ES. I was looking at it on NQ just because the bounces and aggression on the bull side has been so much stronger on NQ this week, so I was watching for it there. Although, look at this. We got the exact same retest at the same time here on ES. Look at this same spot we spotted from the pre-market where I said we were watching that sponge form with all that absorption. Since regular trading hours opened, we rallied off it 1, 2, 3 times here. The problem is it's just not getting a lot of continuation. We're just kind of chopping in this range. So it's making me not love it so much because we're just lacking continuation off of it, which is probably because we may have a directionless day, or at least leading up to FOMC, right? More and more people are going to be sitting out, right? It's almost 10 a.m. and we've traded, since 9:30, we've traded the 22s to 28. So we've traded like a 6-point range here on ES in the first 30 minutes of the day. So typically when I see that on ES, like I just walk away. If it's that flat and that dead, especially ahead of a major event. NQ looked a lot better. That's why I was looking at NQ. There was way more up and down price swings on NQ. It was way relatively stronger. And that's why I was looking at it here on NQ. And look at the bounce that we had off here. So again, I was looking to be a buyer in the zone around 30 to 35. I missed it. Straight up, I missed it. But I was looking to be a buyer around here because my risk was under like 20s, 22, right? So my risk is about 10 points there for, a 30, 40, 50 point move target, right? So I can take that trade there with 3, 4, 5R opportunity. Whereas ES, it's like I've already seen it, bounce off this zone multiple times, barely scratching out, 4 or 5 points there, and we keep rejecting kind of back down in this range. So it's very kind of whippy and choppy. It just didn't look as good to take it. That's why, and that's kind of what I've been seeing a lot this week. It's just a lot of, at least in near-term relative strength on NQ. So I've had a lot better time this week just scalping longs on NQ. But Gavin Hoffman asked, do you prefer ES or NQ and why? I'm just most experienced personally as an S&P trader, right? I've been trading SPY and the S&P ES futures for many years, right? So I'm primarily an S&P trader. However, I've always done kind of confluence analysis on NQ, and I traded a little bit, especially when volatility is very low on ES and price swings are very small. There's just better opportunity on NQ, and that's kind of where I've been at this week a little bit. But I am starting to get more active with it and just take more trades on it, especially with anytime you're trading with order flow, right? This is a good point to make here, right? Anytime you're trading with order flow, it's nice to, in any trading strategy, really, it's nice to be with the direction of the leading instrument. So like when we're looking at ES and NQ and the indices, right? If we're looking to play long and we're looking at the different indices, if the opportunity is the same, right, to buy them on a dip into a key area of support, we want to be with the strongest one, do we not, right? Because we're going to have the most aggressive bounce. We're going to have the highest risk versus reward, best move, right, on the one that's already leading strongest, or vice versa if it's to the downside. At least that's my experience just watching them. Again, I primarily 90+% of the time trade the S&P. But that being said, it is worth, like when you're looking for an upside move, it's worth paying attention to the instrument that's leading to have the strongest move if you're looking to play long, or vice versa. If you're looking to go short, why not look at the one that's already the weakest overall to trade? So typically, I have always done kind of analysis on the NASDAQ, analysis on the Dow, just for confluence. And if anything, it will just keep me out of trades on the S&P, right? So I would just trade less and be like, okay, this doesn't, the confluence I'm seeing with the other indices, not really making sense, not really, you know, if it's relatively weak, etc. Then I'll just avoid a lower quality trade on the S&P. Why not trade YM? I've looked at YM. I don't really trade it. Again, I'm kind of a specialist, right? I don't try to trade everything. I do a lot more analysis on a lot of different things, again, for confluence. But being an order flow trader, trading the market auction, every market has kind of its own personality, and you really need to be a master at it and really understand its behaviors, right? A market auction is a market auction, true. But you really get to know the volatility, the price swings, the levels, etc., on a certain instrument, and you really just kind of specialize in that. You know, I'm kind of at the point now where I've, you know, built such a level of expertise where now I'm like, okay, I can expand my horizons a little bit, right? And especially with correlated assets. It's a lot of the same stuff, right? Gavin's got great questions today. How do you learn NQ coming from ES? It's not that drastic to me personally, just because, you know, I've already been doing analysis on it for many years, and I've traded it here and there. A market auction is a market auction, right? And they generally move together often, right? Because they're very correlated. But just the behavior is obviously a lot faster, a lot more volatile on NQ, much wider price swings. And in some ways that actually kind of makes it easier to read the order flow, right? When there's more volatility, and can see, you know, where participants are trapped, etc., a little more easily. Many times when ES is grinding really slowly, it can become kind of exasperating trying to analyze the order flow when volatility is so low. And sometimes that can get you psyched into over analyzing certain things that happen when we're really just kind of grinding in a small channel. And that's kind of a weakness of mine, is when volatility is very low on ES and we're kind of grinding in channels, right? And then I know that's a weakness of mine, so I tend to just avoid it and not trade it when we're in that kind of condition. Great questions though, Gavin. Yeah, I use tick ranges on footprint charts. I like to look at the volume and the delta by the tick on footprint charts. Typically use like around 10 points plus or minus depending on volatility on NQ, and around 5 points plus or minus depending on volatility on ES. Definitely Bookmap is my preferred tool, just because it's so good at visualizing the participants, and then you have added information with the heat map here that I don't have on a footprint chart. But on my footprint charts, I have a really nice day volume profile on the side. So there's pros and cons to both. Here's one thing that I'll tell you guys. So many people that I've worked with, just helping them with their trading online, right? And so many people that I talk about hyper focus on like entry confirmations, like where to just like click a button. And they hyper focus on the tool, whether it's Bookmap, whether it's a footprint chart, whether it's a great new tool like Deep Charts or something. But at the end of the day, it's a tool, right? And people get super hyper focused on like those entry confirmations of like where to click buy or sell. But I'll tell you, listen to my voice, right? The more important thing is context and location, right? As an order flow trader, we are not the pilot. We are not the captain of the ship, right? The market auction and the tape is the captain of the ship. We are just the mechanic. We're just the engineer following the orders, making stuff happen, right? So we're just following along, right? It's way more powerful to pay attention to the overall context in the market, the overall locations of key support and resistance, key supply and demand, and then we start leveraging order flow tools to get razor sharp precision and add confluence to our trading. But a mistake I see so many people make again and again is they get hyper focused on, they think it's a shortcut. I think they just want to see this one simple trick on a footprint chart, this one simple trick on Bookmap, and boom, that'll just make trading easy. They just look for that and they click buy and sell. It's not that simple. If it was that simple, we'd all be bajillionaires, right? It's way more important to really in-depth understand the overall context that's going in the market, understand the market auction theory, understand where supply and demand is, understand where participants are active in that, and then leverage the tools, leverage your skill analyzing the tools, whether it's a footprint chart or deep charts or Bookmap, whatever it is. At the end of the day, we're just analyzing the market auction, and it's all about your skill to analyze that and develop good entries based on that. So stop hyper focusing on just the tool and the entry confirmation. That's what I get blown up with people every day about that. And I'm telling you, I've been trading since 2016, right? From my experience, it's more important to focus on the context, the location, and have good sound reasoning and locations first, and then, add those additional confluences and things like that. That is where you'll see, a parabolic explosion in your performance, right? So there you go. Oh, congratulations, Gavin. Great questions and great participation today. You've won a free account. If you would like to claim that, check out the instructions in the Discord for the account giveaways. That's awesome, guys. So we're still kind of watching. If I take a total zoom out here, I'm trying to give you guys some coaching value here, and I'm trying to give you guys some good information and insights to improve your trading. Take a full zoom out of the session here. What's happening? Right? We have FOMC coming out at 2 p.m. Look at that. We're just building a ton of volume up and down, taking out highs, taking out lows. Now, can you scalp money out of this? Absolutely. You can fade highs and lows in balanced conditions, right? However, the more and more time that we do this and we just build a massive block of volume here, there's less and less edge to get involved, right? For me personally, there's the most juice to squeeze once we identify these in these first couple drops and pops. But the more we do this, the more and more hands off I get. And look at this, there's VWAP, right? So the context being we are pretty balanced here. We're pretty choppy up and down. We're inside the overnight range, inside the pre-market range. We have FOMC rate decision, super high impact news coming out at 2 p.m. today. And it's the first, 35, almost 40 minutes into the market. ES is trading a 6-point range. NQ is just sweeping out highs and lows. Better opportunity as far as risk versus reward here on NQ, just by the size of the price swings here, fading the highs and lows, targeting a mean reversion or whatever. But very important to pay attention to this context, what develops here, and not try to fancy dance it by looking for something on a footprint chart or something on Bookmap to jump you into clicking buy or sell here, right? We're paying attention to the context of overall what's developing here. And again, that is most important. We do have some account giveaways. Do you guys want to run account giveaways? Smash the like button. Let me check what the likes are at. If you guys appreciate this kind of in-depth insights, we'll call it, in-depth insights to being a better trader, smash the like button, and I greatly appreciate that. This is like a spring just compressing here. We may break out to the upside or the downside, but this thing is just compressing and compressing here. We need to stay very patient. ES is finally kind of dipping into that box down here where we had all that absorption from earlier. So let's pull this up. Yeah, Apex is 90% off right now. Listen, I trade personal capital, but if I was looking to accrue those, then I would definitely do so when there's a major discount going on like that. And again, I always recommend people treating it like it's real money, not like you're trying to flip accounts to get rich quick. That means sizing with reasonable sizing, and not because you can, just because quote unquote 50K account or 150K account, 300K account, whatever it is, look at the max drawdown of what those accounts are. That's really what the account value is, right? Because if you hit that, your account is essentially zero, it's gone. So size your position according to that, right? Generally 1 to 5% risk is pretty widely recommended. So we got 2 more accounts to give away still, guys. As we watch this thing dip back down into this key area from earlier. Trying to watch this and at the same time talk to you guys here. We finally retested this box area down here again. But to be honest with you guys, just given the time frame this morning, it's not looking so hot. After we've already failed 1, 2, 3 times to break out those highs, it's not looking as hot as it did earlier to buy. It may still work. I'm not saying it won't work. I'm just saying the quality of it seemed a lot better in the first 30 minutes than it does now. See what ES is doing. And ES is kind of breaking under these lows now. So that dip buy is not looking as good, just FYI. Still watching it. We will run the giveaways, guys. 133 likes on the stream. Can we get those numbers up to 150? We got 2 accounts to give away, guys. Can we get those up to 150? Right? I'm watching this zone here, guys, on NQ. I'm a little more hesitant and iffy here, just given the overall context. And this buying is right now looking kind of weak out of here. This selling is coming in still heavy. See how buyers tried to defend this box here, and it just looked kind of weak, kind of a lackluster attempt there. Anything could change. It could shoot out of here, but I'm just seeing right now it's looking a little weak. It's looking a little heavy. It's looking a little heavy, guys. All right, where are we at? Heck yeah, we're over 150. Nice job, guys. Appreciate you guys all joining in here to learn live with us, and look at that, smoking through. So this was a great learning point. See how before we saw this key area develop, and then we saw large aggressive buying defend it, and this time we came into there and we saw kind of weak buying off of it and heavier selling laying into it. Now we may go sweep this out now that we swept out the lows and recapture if buying is super aggressive again. But just in the real time, watching it, it didn't look so good as a dip buy right here. Now that we swept out those lows, that could change again, right? That could change, but it's very important to pay attention to the reaction of aggressive participants when we come into a key area like that. All right, so in the chat here, guys, enter one time and one time only. If you enter multiple times, then you will not be selected. We have 2 more accounts to give away. Gavin got one already because he's an awesome participant here, asking great questions and learning, right? So enter one time and one time on the chat, exclamation point tape reader. Giving you guys a second. Exclamation point tape reader to be entered. NQ is just flirting with these lows, but a lot of kind of heavy selling coming in. See, when I zoom out here, before we saw like an instant strong reaction from large buyers. Here we're seeing kind of large heavy selling just laying into these lows here, which tends to lead to breakdowns. And so earlier as well, remember when I was looking at that dip buy at this level earlier, ES was supporting this absorption zone. Now ES has crushed it. So definitely not as great of a dip buy, although it could work, right? I'm not saying it can't work. Wait, we may fake it out and recapture it, but it's just looking a little more dangerous. There's some aggressive buying coming in. Selling kind of got weaker down here on ES. Came all the way down to the bottom of that zone that I talked about, which was 70.14. I was kind of watching that 70.14 to 70.24 area. We came all the way down to the bottom of it. Now we've had a nice recapture of this. This is more interesting if we pull back and hold it. All right, we're going to close it now. Entries are now closed, guys. Entries are now closed. So we will run the giveaways here in a sec. Let me get the names. Strong recapture by NQ there, but ES is still kind of flirting under this zone here. All right, got these names here. All right, first one coming up. Gold and silver dumped. Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this as kind of a retest to possibly short if we get a break and retest under this, similar to what I talked about earlier. Kraber Musa 04, congratulations. Let me know in the chat if you're here. Kraber Musa, let me know, 04. There he is. Congratulations. So head over to the Chart Fanatics Discord, to the giveaways tab if you would like to claim that. Awesome. Good stuff. Yeah, not to be confused with Kramer. Congratulations, man. The entries are now closed, guys. Entries are now closed. All right, so we got one more to give away here. I'm watching this as it plays out here with you guys too. Star hates you. Congratulations. Let me know in the chat if you're here. So another thing to note, a lot of people struggle when the market conditions change. Star loves you. Are you here? And so far this week, we've had a really strong uptrend. We've had a really strong uptrend, right? And so I've been playing longs this week on NQ. Now today, obviously going into FOMC rate decision, we're seeing something different than what we've seen so far this week. Star, let me know. You got like a minute here in the chat. Otherwise, I'm going to move on and rerun it for someone else. Star hates you. Are you in the chat? Did he type and I missed it? Yeah, let me know if you're here. So this kind of choppy consolidation that we're having here this morning is very different price action, very different than what we've seen every day so far this week since we gapped down and rallied, right? So it's very important to identify that and stay patient and see what the opportunity is in that, right? A lot of people will trade really well during an uptrend or really well in a downtrend and then be way thrown off when the market then goes sideways and just get yourself blasted, right? So it's extremely important to always have kind of your ear to the ground, adapting to the conditions, right? You have different setups for balance range conditions. We have different setups for uptrending conditions and different setups for downtrending conditions, right? And it's really important to identify that as it's developing, right? And not get yourself hurt. All right, guys, we're gonna run it again. We're gonna run it again now. Star has not entered the chat. So one more time here, we've got one more account to give away. Respinning. Bruce D. Wayne. Let me know, are you in the chat? Bruce D. Wayne, congratulations. So both ES and NQ, very different conditions so far this morning than what we have seen so far this week. So it's important to adapt to that. Make sure, again, going back to what I talked about earlier about understanding and identifying context and locations. Bruce D. Wayne, there he is. Congratulations, man. You have won the other account. Head over to the Chart Fanatics Discord, to the giveaways tab to claim your account there. Congratulations. Man, Batman's already got deep pockets, man. He don't need that. All right, so we're continuing to basically trade inside the overnight range on both ES and NQ, which is not surprising at all, given the fact that we've had a pretty extended move, right? It would be very reasonable to expect that we see some sideways action consolidation ahead of a major news event after we've kind of already rallied into some areas of resistance. We've already kind of made a pretty extended move this week. Not that it can't go higher. I'm not saying it can't. Definitely not saying that. But I'm just saying, and wow, actually, I wish I was watching NQ. I was watching ES over there. Look at that break and retest in that zone. Second one I missed today. Context is a little different now, though, with ES kind of giving up that key area, starting to try to recapture it. But context is a little different than when I was trying to take that trade earlier. Past your 300K eval. Congratulations, man. Everybody put a W in the chat for Potato King M9K. That's a great win. Good job, man. So ES has recaptured that zone there. NQ recaptured that zone as well. Very balanced conditions overall. So let's take a look at this overall, right? Because this is a good point. This is a good point. Let's take a look at the volume profiles here on NQ. Going back to what I was talking about as far as understanding the conditions that we're in and understanding when that shifts. So far this week, what have we seen on the volume profile, right? We've seen wavier pattern, really aggressive buyers all week have kind of rallied, consolidated the highs. Pullbacks have held at low volume nodes extremely well, right? Pretty much all week, and this one starting here when we recaptured this one, right? So pretty much every time we rallied aggressively, pulled back into low volume nodes where buyers were very aggressive, it's been holding all week. So we've seen this. Now what are we seeing? We got all the way up to these highs ahead of FOMC, and we're seeing more of a bell curve volume distribution, right? Balanced range conditions. You guys see that? So this may break out and it may break down, but in the meantime, you know, many times we see fake outs at the highs and lows, fake outs at the highs and lows, mean reverting inside where we have the high volume of this distribution, and we can see how it tapers off on both ends, lack of participation in the auction above and below. And that makes sense, right? Because the market participants are probably already priced in where they are, and we're coming up to FOMC rate decision. You know, that could have a big impact if something unexpected happens, right? I think overall, let's take a look actually at my fundamental analysis. I think overall people are pretty much pricing in no change. Could be wrong about that. Not a huge fundamentals guy, but it is important to stay aware of. FOMC rate decision expected with no change at 3.5 to 3.75%. So expected no change, but if there is something, you know, could drastically change. That could cause a new imbalance in the market where we get another strong move. Well, LVN's low volume nodes and, you know, similarly like fair value gaps that form alongside them on candle charts after a consolidation and breakout are high probability when the market is trending, right? Because what's happening there? Super aggressive buyers or sellers are buying or selling the market there, driving it, right? And if we pull back into where those participants are really aggressive, they're likely to want to buy or sell some more there, right? So think about it. Think about the latest iPhone goes on sale and a ton of people buy it. It flies off the shelves, right? Supply is gone, right? So the volume is low, prices, it shoots up, right? And then prices go back to normal. People stop buying. Then market pulls back. iPhones go on discount again. Well, if people still want that thing really bad and the market is still trending higher overall, as soon as it's back on sale a little bit, It may not be as on sale as it was before, but it's a little bit on sale. It's better than full price. Heck yeah, I'm buying it. Right? Same thing. Market uptrends, leaves low volume nodes, pullbacks, hold them. Continue. Now on the flip side, sorry guys, got some lawn people outside my office. On the flip side, when the market has gone through an imbalance phase where we've been uptrending, right? Let me pull up this again. The market has gone through an imbalance phase, right? Where we were uptrending, holding those very well, right? On pullbacks. And then we get up here. Now, you know, the imbalance move has occurred. Now we're bouncing again, especially ahead of a major fundamental news event, right? So that's the kind of context and things that we're aware of, right? If we were this whole week, you know, buying dips at low volume node, buying dips at low volume node, we're continuing this uptrend move. And now information shifts where it's like, okay, now we're balancing. Let's take a little bit of a tactical pause and understand the change that's happening, right? Before we just blindly just buy every dip again. Buy on one, sell on the other, account passed. That's funny. Hey, I mean, it's kind of like a spread, right? That's funny. So I look at the same thing. Somebody asked, J-Rod asked, what do I look at on a footprint chart? And, you know, I kind of look at the same stuff where we have volume, you know, build up and where aggressive participants drive price out of there and leave areas of low volume. See if I can see an example of that. Okay, here at these highs earlier. So looking at my 5-point range bars on the footprint chart on ES, right? We made these, we broke over these highs, right? Look at the top of the volume distribution here. And a lot of aggressive sellers hit that, right? So we see this bulge in volume here with a lot of aggressive sellers that came in at the high. And then we dropped fast from there, right? See how there's like a lower volume tail there, right? So it's kind of the same thing, but it's intraday viewing it like on point ranges, right? And then we retested back up into there, right there, and then sold off there from aggressively, right? ES has been slowly grinding, so I wasn't really loving that trade, but there it is, right? So it's kind of the same thing. It's like looking where volume bulges and looking where it moves aggressively away from. See that? And also look at this volume distribution today. Right? See how? So here at the lows, we had a lot of aggressive buying come in and then leave a tail of lower volume as we rallied back up after we kind of hit the lows of this volume distribution. At the highs, again, this is balance range stuff, right? We hit that, broke those highs right here. Aggressive selling came in, left a tail of lower volume. We dropped back in the middle. Right? And then we see the point of control there in the middle. Makes sense? I mean, we have a very clear picture of what's going on. That doesn't mean we necessarily want to try to trade every move up and down in it, but we're just aware of what's going on. And when, you know, something else develops, either a break out of this or a nice opportunity to fade one of the extremes, targeting the point of control back in the middle, we understand what's going on, right? But Any other questions from you guys? Great questions today. Good job, guys. Great participation, great questions. Despite being a little bit of a lack of action on my end, taking trades today, it's a little bit choppy morning, right? We've been on a strong imbalance move and we kind of shifted into a balanced condition this morning. So you can either adapt quickly and just start firing off trades. Great, okay. Or kind of like me this morning, taking a little bit of a tactical pause. I'm already up a lot this week. I'm seeing conditions shift. I'm just going to sit back and wait and see what the next really good opportunity is where there's a lot of juice to squeeze. You can absolutely scalp the highs and lows of the balance range that's formed today. But hopefully this analysis has helped you guys see it more clearly and understand what's actually going on in the market auction. So you're not caught off guard when things change like this. Gavin, they should get back to you. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline is on getting back to people there, but if you put it in, it'll happen. All right, guys. Yeah, I'm in there with Carmine as well. Carmine's a great trader as well. Very good. How do you avoid slippage? Having a nice little breakdown from here, possibly. It really depends, executing with a broker that executes really quick. I will say Sierra chart, their, the Teton order routing is very quick. Probably the least slippage of any accounts I've ever traded, and fastest execution. I have no affiliation with them, nothing. I'm just purely giving you my honest opinion from a personal trading experience, right? So their order routing is very fast, slippage is very low. I rarely get slipped much on there. So you just have to test with it, look at reviews of different brokers and see, and then I pretty much always have a hard stop set, right? I even if I'm gonna manually manage a trade, I enter with a bracket order and have, even if it's a wider stop set just for protection in case I'm not fast enough with my market trade. And then sometimes I'll actually move the hard stop up to where I want it as my actual stop. But especially this year with the volatility that's increased since the new presidency, I absolutely always trade with hard stops orders in. Good questions, guys. Good questions. I would do your own research. I can't really recommend anything. I would do your own research on brokers as far as execution speed, as far as, reliability and everything else like that. Hard stop meaning I have a bracket order in, I have a limit stop order in. Like I'm not like using a mental stop to stop. Sometimes I am, but I still, for safety, even have a hard stop order in always. If you're not using that and you're not able to execute fast enough to follow your stops and you're getting slipped because your execution is just too slow and you're losing more than you intended on trades, then you should absolutely always enter a trade with a hard stop set. Yeah, great questions, guys. All right, guys, that's probably going to be a wrap for me on this session. Be cautious, identify the conditions that are going on, and then analyze the order flow accordingly based on, what's happening and what makes sense in the current market conditions. Is it imbalanced or is it balanced? And then what are the key areas? Yep. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the questions, guys. We'll be back on Friday. So I'm typically live on Chart Fanatics on Friday. So I'll see you guys back here then. Thank you, guys. Peace. Thanks.